Ladies and gentlemen, I will call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Haverford Township Board of Commissioners regular meeting for Monday, August 8th, 2022. Prior to this meeting, we had an executive session at 6:15 p.m. This board met to discuss legal issues and real estate matters. Mr. Township Manager, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Gondek.
Present.
Commissioner Forresty Grubb.
Here.
Commissioner McCluskey. Here. Commissioner Cavender.
Here.
Commissioner Quinn.
Here.
Commissioner Hart.
Here.
Commissioner Wexler.
Here.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Here.
Commissioner Holmes.
Here. Chief Viola, would you stand and lead the pledge? We will move right into the citizens forum. Reminder to everybody, we have registered speakers who could speak at any topic, and then after that, we open the floor to folks who would like to speak on an agenda item. Then later in the meeting, the floor is reopened to anybody who would like to speak on any item, but who wasn't registered as a speaker. I have 5 registered speakers today. I invite Denise McNamara of College Avenue to the front. Not seeing Ms. McNamara, I will move to Rachel Amder. Oh, yeah, sure.
Hello,
Good evening.
my name is Rachel Amder. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the board today. I wanted to speak last month when the board sought public comment on whether to pass the resolution in support of the Women's Health Protection Act, but I was out of town. The board did pass that resolution last month, and today I rise to express my extreme gratitude for this very courageous and incredibly important vote. I find it sad that I'm forced to call the board's action courageous. Why? Because every poll on this question shows that somewhere between 60 and 80% of Americans support abortion rights. And there's not much room for doubt after the recent vote in Deep Red, Kansas. That vote proved that even one of the most conservative states in the country, most people support preserving a woman's right to an abortion. When confronted with a threat to those rights, they stood up in large numbers and voted to protect a woman's fundamental right to choose. So if it's backed by such clear support, why is it courageous for this board to have adopted the resolution? Because a very vocal minority wants to impose its will on the nation and on this state. Let's be clear, I'm not unsympathetic to the other side's position. I assure you that I love babies just as much as they do. I understand the ethical and moral underpinnings of a position that says life is precious and worth preserving. But on a question like this, where there is such powerful disagreement on exactly where and how to draw those boundary lines, isn't it best to trust the women, to leave the decision to the women? Isn't it best to keep the government out of it? Isn't it best when people feel so differently for every woman to find her own answer based on her own circumstances? And like most Americans, I think the answer is yes, trust the women. I applaud this board for having the courage to recognize that in the face of very heated opposition. The board's resolution was not only brave, but also important. Why is it important? Because at times like this, when core values and fundamental rights are at stake, statements need to be made. Positions need to be taken and expressed loudly. Our state legislator is already talking about this and will most assuredly push ahead with their agenda limiting women's rights. They need to know that their actions will affect people across the state, hearing from townships like ours, where real people live real lives. It's an important vehicle for helping get the message out, and this resolution did so loudly. To those who say the board should stay in its lane and not weigh in, I say to this board, this is your lane. You represented us. We voted for you, and you represented how we feel. We expect to hear your voices when something important comes up. You absolutely should be making statements on our behalf and send a message loudly. So once again, I thank you. I thank all of you for your very courageous vote. I thank you for doing everything you can to protect the fundamental right of every woman to make her own choice. I applaud your action, and I know many thousands of Haverford women agree with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth Goldberg.
Thank you. I am also here tonight to sincerely thank the Democratic
Ms.
Commissioners.
Goldberg, just announce yourself and where you're from.
I'm Liz Goldberg. I live in Winfield. I'm here tonight to sincerely thank the Democratic Commissioners who, at the last board meeting, had the political and moral courage to approve Resolution 227 and call on the U.S. Congress to pass the Women's Health Protection Act. Local governments across southeastern Pennsylvania and the country are considering what they can and should do in response to the extremist Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. Calling for the passage of the Women's Health Protection Act is a critically important first step, and I'm proud to live in a township with elected leaders who recognize that it was their duty to act. I would also like to respond to several of the criticisms heard at the last meeting. The first was that abortion rights are not a matter of local concern. One Republican commissioner, in explaining his no vote, stated that he was, quote, elected to represent citizens in matters that affect them directly. Matters that affect them directly. Statements like this betray just how little consideration many opponents of reproductive choice have given to the true consequences of their position. I challenge you to think of a single matter that could possibly affect a citizen like me more directly than government-mandated pregnancy and parenthood. The second was that abortion is too controversial a topic for this board. Yes, it is controversial, as was abolition and the 14th Amendment, women's suffrage, school desegregation, and gay marriage. Every single fundamental human right that has been fought for and won in the history of this great country was controversial. You may not like, and in each of those battles, local representatives on local boards, just like this one, had vital roles to play. You might not like the divisiveness and heat of this political moment, but the reality of this moment weighs on all of us. And the residents of this township deserve local leaders, like the majority of you, who do not shy away from answering the toughest questions or fighting the most important battles. The third criticism was that the resolution was just for show and would have no substantive value. I strongly disagree. The resolution does have important practical consequences, and that is why you heard such an uproar. When a U.S. congressperson introduces a bill or speaks in support of one, she says, I have heard from my constituents. I have received thousands of emails and phone calls, and local boards and local representatives in my district are calling for this action. In that way, local resolutions like this one give critical political support to federal officials who want to protect reproductive choice and create important pressure on those who do not. Again, I want to thank the majority for their brave vote and clear words in support of the fundamental rights of women of this township.
Thank you, Ms. Goldberg. Michael Klein.
Good evening. My name is Michael Klein. I live in the First Ward on Ivy Rock Lane. And I wanted to voice my support for the commissioners who voted in favor of the resolution supporting the Women's Health Protection Act at the July meeting. When I watched that meeting, it worried me that some of what I heard from the speakers opposed to the resolution did not sound correct. So I did some research. And indeed, several statements presented as factual were untrue, or only partially true. But going through all of them would take more time than I have tonight. So I'll just focus on two. First, I heard a speaker claim that the Women's Health Protection Act would allow abortion until 1 second before birth. I don't know how you measure 1 second before birth, but anyway, that's a pretty shocking image. So I read the proposed legislation, it doesn't say anything about abortion 1 second before birth. Quite simply, protects the right of access to abortion services up to the point of fetal viability without a range of restrictions. The type of restrictions that the anti-abortion movement has been fighting to put into place for almost 50 years, clearly designed to make abortion harder to access, and they've been successful. The proposed legislation also protects access to abortion services after fetal viability, but only when continuation of the pregnancy would pose a risk to the pregnant patient's life or health. I find it odd that a so-called pro-life movement would have a problem with protecting the life of a pregnant woman. So the picture is certainly more complicated than some of those speakers at the last meeting would have us believe. But of course, decisions in the area of reproductive health are inherently complicated. The real question is, who should be making those decisions? The government or you, in consultation with your conscience and your doctor? The second thing I heard that I wanted to respond to is the opinion that this is not an issue that local governments should be addressing. It's a controversial topic beyond the purview of township commissioners. I see two major problems with that opinion. First, the proposed legislation would clearly apply to local and state governments, which would not be able to restrict access to abortion services if that legislation passes. Since local government is specifically included in the proposed legislation, it seems only logical to have local governments declare their views. Second, the idea that controversial issues are not important to local communities is simply anti-democratic. The closer a governmental body is to me, the more responsive it should be to my concerns. And my concern with the Dobbs v. Jackson decision is that it has taken away the rights from millions of Americans. It's a scary thing when government at any level takes away rights, as we will all discover if the Republican candidate for the governor of Pennsylvania wins and makes good on his promise to outlaw abortion with no exceptions, including to protect the life of the mother. I'd like to end with a question. Which is more dangerous? A government stripping its citizens of long-established rights, or a so-called right-to-life movement that relentlessly targets women, promises to force a 10-year-old rape victim to carry her pregnancy to term, and whose tactics include murder? If you said both, you're right. This movement and its allies on the Supreme Court are what those of us who support women's rights are up against. And your vote last month was one step in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Our final registered speaker, James Sivios.
Good evening. My name is James Sivos. I live on Buck Lane. I want to thank everyone here tonight and anyone who's going to be watching the recording at a later time. So I live on Buck Lane. Like what I said, I'm here to talk about the speed limit on Buck Lane. It's 15 miles per hour, but I'm not here today because it's 15 miles per hour. I'm here today because the signs were changed to 25 miles per hour by the township. So I've been trying to resolve this through the township, various means, for about 6 months. So I feel like it's prudent for me to come here and talk to the board directly and seek guidance as to how we can get this resolved. So according to municipal law, the speed limit on Buck Lane between Haverford Road and Lower Marion County line is 15 miles per hour. It's been 15 miles per hour since 1975. Recently, in February or March this year, 2022, the speed limit was incorrectly and illegally increased to 25 miles per hour. There was one speed limit sign that was removed, and two were replaced with their 15 mile per hour signs with 25 mile per hour speed limit signs. I spoke to Sergeant Long, who oversees traffic in the township, about this matter, and he did indeed concur that the speed limit was illegally changed from 15 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour, the signs. And he confirmed that the township did not change the speed limit legally, like through the code book. He assured me that if they went that route, there would be a traffic study, and it would be voted by the board here, and it would be put into the handbook, into the code. He referred me to the Public Works Department as they're responsible for changing the signs in the township. I spoke to Kim there, and she did some research. She concurred that, or she found that there was no record of any change. There was no work order issued for the change. And she referred me to Dan Mariani, I believe his name is. I've reached out to Dan a couple of times. I left him voicemails, and I haven't heard anything back. So I'm a little confused as to what to do, but I do have some information from our code book. Section 175-76, Schedule 1, speed limits. In accordance with the provisions of Section 175-7, speed limits are established along highways and parts thereof described below as indicated. Fast forward down a few streets, and you come across Buck Lane, amended November 10th, 1975 by Ordinance 1620. The speed limit is posted 15 miles per hour, and the location is from Haverford Road to Lower Marion County line. So I do have some photographs. I don't know if I can submit them.
Sure. Thank you.
Those are from Google Maps. There are 3 photographs that show the signs that were previously up. The first one was the sign that was removed. I have the locations, rough addresses, as well as what direction they were facing, as well as the other 2, sign 2 and sign 3, sign 3 was the one that was removed. Sign 1 and 2 were the ones that had, I mislabeled this. So anyways, they were all 15, 1 was removed, and now the 2 remaining are 25. And then finally, I have a map of where the speed limit should be 15 miles per hour with some information, roughly where those signs were. Now, I'm just not some upset citizen that's struggling here. I'm really concerned about the safety on Buck Lane. People cut through that area. There are 2 schools there. There's a meeting house at the Friend School, and there's a park there. There are no crosswalks. There are no speed bumps. So, and the last thing is that I live on the street. I have 2 little children. One is nonverbal. He has a learning disability, and he's reached a point where his motor skills, his abilities have outgrown his mental capacity and his development. So it's scary for us. I feel uncomfortable crossing the street. But the thing that stands out to me the most is that the lady, one of my neighbors, she has 4 children, and her youngest is roughly the same age as my son, so probably 2 or 3. And he slipped out of her arms and ran out into the street. And the way she screamed, the guttural sort of shriek, it's something I'm never going to forget. And when I moved there, I was concerned about, people coming down the hill, they're speeding. And when it was 15 miles per hour posted, people were going 20, 30. Now people are going 40 plus. So that's what I'd like to say. And I want to thank you. And maybe I could have some feedback on this topic.
Thank you. We'll have the chief of police address the issues on the speed limits.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. That concludes our registered speakers. I now open the floor to anybody who would like to speak on an agenda item this evening. I'll start here on the left side of the room. Anybody? You're on the right side of the room, anybody? So hearing none, I will defer to any of my colleagues who care to comment or not to comment on on the three speakers who spoke on the same issue, Ms. Amater, Ms. Goldberg, Mr. Klein. And then I would ask the chief if he could address the issue about the 15 miles an hour, 25 mile an hour, and the signs. Any commissioner like to say anything? Hearing none, chief.
Thank you, Commissioner. Sir, I heard what you said. We started a program about 2.5 years ago. Years ago, signs were placed haphazardly in the township for various reasons. So when Dave came on board, we sat down and decided that we're going to make the township uniform and follow the state code and the federal code for all signs in the township. And one of those issues that we came across was illegally placed 15-mile-an-hour signs. Now, I don't know for a fact that there's an ordinance. I believe what you said, there's an ordinance there. We probably missed that because I believe the book gets codified every so many years. It gets brought up to date. So sometimes it's difficult for us to stay on top of that, but we'll work on that. So any 15-mile-an-hour sign on any secondary street is illegal unless it's in an absolute school zone. And those school zones are clearly stated in the code how far they have to be. So it's not just your street. We changed almost every street, took 15-mile-an-hour signs in the entire township to make them legal signs. So we're going to address that ordinance and make it legal. Now, I know you spoke to Sergeant Long, but from my recollection is we have done speed studies on your street multiple times as a request of former commissioner. So we'll have to look at that. But the speed studies that we found were well within the limits. We can do another speed study up here without an issue. We have the equipment for it, and we'll do another one and share the results with the commissioner and yourself. So just for your knowledge, that every 15-mile-an-hour sign in the township that was not in the school zone has been removed or is in the process of being removed now. So that answer your question, Dave? I think you have anything to add there?
Chief,
If
yeah.
I could just,
Go ahead, Kevin.
sorry, I mean, I just wanted to add, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this is obviously a problem about the township, and it's one, certainly, we're sympathetic to it. Nobody up here, we all understand there's too many cars, people are driving too fast, people need to slow down. We all want that to happen. The issue that the department was running into with the 15 miles an hour is state law preempted those ordinances. So 15 miles an hour was not enforceable, and all it did was create animosity between residents and police who couldn't enforce. If someone drove 20 miles an hour down your street, the police could not write he or she a ticket. And so it only muddled the situation further. So what the police department and the township manager came up with, we're going to just put out what the actual speed limit is on all these roads, and we're going to try to enforce it, and we're going to try to, get people to understand, and we're going to take as many other steps to control speed as we can. But it's not something where, the township is nefariously or illegally not following ordinances. We're just trying, the same as everywhere else on Buck Lane, on Ralston, on all these other streets, to control cars that are moving too fast down these roads. And the reality is that the state law preempted any township ordinance that was passed in the 70s that was made with good intention. The good intentions of putting up these 15-mile-an-hour signs in the hopes that people would follow it, but it wasn't enforceable. And then, the calls would go into the police department, they'd show up on Buck Lane, and they'd say, well, that guy was going 20 or that guy was going 25, write him a ticket. And they couldn't do anything. And it just created a situation where people felt even more helpless, the police felt helpless, and it wasn't actually doing anything good in terms of having that sign up. And that's sort of where we are. And it's not that we're not sympathetic, and we're open to ideas, and we're constantly trying to find solutions. That's sort of how the process is working now.
No, you could get up again at the later in the meeting when we have citizens forum again. But for now, I do want to make two things clear. One, John, our ordinance is full of 15s and 20 miles an hour. It is as Mr. Zybos described.
We'll adjust that.
Section 76, as you recall, it has 20 miles an hour for Chestnut. It's got a variety of 15s. There are Also, I want to remind everybody that we have tasked our engineer with providing us in September up-to-date information, state-of-the-art information on traffic calming, which we're going to be looking at everywhere in the township, and especially those streets where people had enjoyed a 15 or a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, and to consider what other ways we can take, what other steps we can take within the law to slow traffic, to encourage traffic to go elsewhere, and that is underway. But we have been dealing with, for a number of years now on this board, the issue of the, as has been relayed to us, the unenforceability of any limit under 25 miles an hour in any of our residential areas, except for very specifically the specific school zones. And those signs, not just the sign in Mr. Sivos's neighborhood, but signs in a number of neighborhoods have just changed, and they've changed overnight, or one day somebody comes home and the sign has changed to 25 miles an hour. It can be very upsetting for neighbors who think that a law has been changed or the speed limit has been upped, when in reality we're trying to just have uniform signage throughout the township. So that is currently where things stand on that issue.
Commissioner,
Yes.
if I may, sir, if you want to, I could talk to you after, walk out and talk to you after the meeting. I have a conversation with you tomorrow. If you want to talk more about it, I'd be more than glad to. Tomorrow? I'll get your phone number.
Mr. Sivos, just before you go, I wanted to just state for you specifically that we are aware, and I completely empathize with your feelings. I think that neighborhood in particular, while the tensions that Commissioner Holmes and Commissioner McCluskey and Chief Viola talked about are absolutely there. I also think there are some areas that have had demographic changes that make it a little more dangerous. Like, we have higher volumes of cars and we have younger kids. And so in those cases, it is important that we hear from residents that there are those sort of pain points where it's most dangerous, if there are schools on the street. So I just want you to know that we take it seriously and understand that the 15-mile-an-hour sign is just one way that we can try to address these things. So thanks for coming.
We will now move on to the Bureau of Fire update.
The report for July was a total of 120 calls. The average personnel per call was 21 members per call. There were 81 hours committed to firefighting. 185 hours were dedicated to training. All companies attended the fireworks display at Lanark Country Club for safety. All companies participated in civic groups' 4th of July parades. Bon Air Fire Company participated in a Christmas in July party. 2 members from Oakmont attended a training class at the National Fire Academy in Emmitsburg, Maryland. And Manoa had a working garage fire on Woodbine Avenue the 4th of July evening and was assisted by both Brookline and Lanark Fire Companies. And that's the report from the head of the Bureau of Fire.
Thank you, Commissioner Wexler. Anybody have any questions for Commissioner Wexler? Turn to the Township Auditor update.
Mr. President, Mr. Anderson is ill tonight. He did pass on that he had reviewed the expenditures and warrants for the meeting and found no irregularities, and all his questions were answered to his satisfaction. He was too ill to pass on any of his usual jokes in his stand-up routine.
Wow, that actually has me very alarmed.
He did promise to be back in September to tell us about the Phillies' prospects in the postseason, as well as how the Eagles' season looks to shape up.
Maybe he'll even have some Flyers intel. Thank you for that, Commissioner Hart. Mr. Berman, Township Manager update. The floor is yours.
Thank you. As you know, Commissioners,
Go ahead.
we have, you threw me off. As you know, we have had some really warm weather, and so we've been starting a little bit earlier with the solid waste and recycling collection. And we appreciate the patience of our residents who have to get their trash out either the night before or a little bit earlier in the morning. We're going to do that tomorrow and Wednesday, and hopefully the weather will break after that, and we should be back to normal. The front wall of this building, we are just wrapping up our forensic investigation, and I hope to be back next month with a recommendation to award a contract for the design and architectural work that's necessary to go ahead and bid the rework that we need to do. Vermont and Glendale, there is a multimodal transportation grant for that intersection. We have an RFP that's out for engineering services. Pannoni, our township engineer, did prepare the intersection control evaluation that was required by PennDOT, and we need to meet with PennDOT to go through that and refine the plan. The comp plan, the next opportunity to comment on the comprehensive plan update will be this Thursday, the 11th at 7 p.m. at the Planning Commission meeting. Next week, we are starting a sanitary sewer main replacement project on Woodcrest, and that's in the, what ward are you, Larry? 6th Ward?
Yes.
Thank you. And so that'll create some disturbance for the residents, and we'll be in contact with them directly. Frederick and Ellis, we're completing a storm sewer project there. The repaving of the work that the township did, and that would be the full width on Frederick and a half width on Ellis, will take place later this week. And then PICO will be back after that to complete the paving that they need to do on Ellis Road. And that's all I have this evening.
Thank you. Sorry to distract you. I had something for you that I forgot. I left at home. Okay, we now move to approval of the minutes. We will entertain a motion to approve them.
Okay, I would like to approve the regular meeting minutes of July 11th, 2022.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Quinn. I have a second from Commissioner Hart. Does anybody have any questions or comments, additions or deletions to the minutes? Hearing none. Mr. Berman?
Commissioner Gondek.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Wexler.
Yes.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes. We will now move to the approval of warrants.
Mr. President, motion to approve the following warrant, number 8, 2022, totaling $3,370,357.69. General and sewer fund payroll for July 21st, 2022, in the amount of $793,457.31. General and sewer fund payroll for August 4th, 2022, in the amount of $756,468.27. General fund disbursements, number 8, 2022, in the amount of $1,451,584.93. Sewer fund disbursements, number 8, 2022, in the amount of $35,826.41. Community Development Block Grant Fund disbursement, number 8, 2022, in the amount of $214,527.97. Capital Projects Funds disbursement, number 8, 2022, in the amount of $57,968.18. American Rescue Plan Fund disbursement, number 8, 2022, in the amount of $32,502.25. PA Unemployment Tax Services, ACH, in the amount of $1,078.62. Credit card statement ending July 27th, 2022, in the amount of $26,943.75.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, additions, deletions? We have heard from our township auditor through his agent, Commissioner Hart, that he's has any questions he's had have been answered to his satisfaction. So, Mr. Berman?
Commissioner Gondek.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Wexler.
Yes.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes. We move to an assessment appeal settlement stipulation.
Mr. Commissioner,
Mr. Cavanagh.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the settlement and stipulation of council in the matter of an owner-initiated property tax assessment appeal for property located at 49 Woodcroft Road, DC Folio number 220400727700, pending in the Court of Common Pleas of Delaware County, number 2020-009152, and authorize council and proper officers of the board to execute necessary documents.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from anybody? Hearing none?
Commissioner Gondik.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Wexler.
Yes.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes. Next on our agenda is adopting the 2023 budget adoption schedule.
Mr. President, motion to adopt the 2023 budget adoption schedule.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. McCluskey, can we reveal the schedule to the audience?
Page it's on.
All the way to the
I
bottom.
have it.
Page
So the presentation from
117.
Mr. Berman to the Board of Commissioners will be a public presentation on or before October 31st, 2022. The first special budget meeting of the board will be Monday, November 21st, 2022 at 7 o'clock. And the second and final presentation adoption of the 2023 budget will be Monday, December 12th, 2022, also at 7 o'clock. This is following our traditional timeframe and schedule that we follow each year, following Mr. Berman's presentation. And at that point, the budget will be, or the proposed budget as it stands will be made public and on the website and for public consumption.
Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments? Mr. Berman?
Commissioner Gondik.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Wexler.
Yes.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes. We now move to grants for senior initiative grants.
Mr. President, motion to award the senior initiative grants.
Second.
Mr. President, there was a presentation at the work session last week by the president of the Senior Citizens Council. The council had reviewed the various applications and had recommended that we award to two of the applicants, the Haverford Adult School and the Kelly Center.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Hart. Does anybody have any other questions or comments on this grant? Grants. Call the roll.
Commissioner Gondik.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Wexler.
Yes.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes. 11 is a traffic ordinance. This is something in my ward. If somebody could pick this up for me.
I'll make the motion to adopt the second reading of ordinance P12, 2022, authorizing traffic restrictions on the following highways. Special purpose parking zones in front of 819 Ardmore Avenue.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? This is a second reading. Mr. Berman.
Commissioner Gondik.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Wexler.
Yes.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes. We now move to ordinance number P13 of 2022, the Harvard Road Deed of Dedication. This is a first reading.
I would like to make a motion to adopt or to adopt ordinance number P13 or 2022, accepting dedication of an extension of Harvard Road as public land and associated sanitary sewer and storm sewer facilities.
Second.
And I'd just like to point out, I'd like to thank Pinoni for all their hard work with this. I spoke to Dave the other day about this, and as you all know, we ran into some things over the years with this spot, and I'm happy that it's resolved now and everything. So thank everybody for all their work on that.
Good. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Hearing none. Mr. Berman.
Commissioner Gondik.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Wexler.
Yes.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes. Item number 13 on our agenda, ordinance number P16 of 2022, traffic first reading.
President, motion to adopt first reading of ordinance P16, 2022, establishing traffic restrictions on the following highway in front of 101 Campbell Avenue.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Anybody have any questions or comments? Hearing none. Mr. Berman.
Commissioner Gondik.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Wexler.
Yes.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes. We move now to resolutions. Resolution number 2273 of 2022. This is Haverford Township Day, state highways, and a signature designee authorizing our chief to undertake various things for Township Day.
Second, or was that?
Oh, I need a first.
Oh, okay. I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution number 2273, 2022, authorizing Chief John Viola to execute any and all documents with PennDOT and be responsible for the safety and welfare of residents utilizing state highways on Haverford Township Day, Saturday, October 1st, 2022.
Second.
Are you prepared to assume these responsibilities, Chief Viola? Glad to hear that. Any other questions or comments from anybody on the board? Mr. Berman.
Commissioner Gondik.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Wexler.
Yes.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
With great relief, yes. The next resolution is 2274, 2022, approving the CDBG Action Plan, Community Development Block Grant Action Plan.
Make a motion to adopt resolution 2274, 2022, approving the CDBG action plan with projected project allocations.
Have a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Anyone like to, do we have any questions or comments or would like to discuss this? Obviously, this was discussed last week at the work session. Yes, please.
I'm sorry, I wasn't here at the work session, but how often do we have one of these action plans? Is it annually?
So this is an annual plan. We receive funding through the federal government. It's our Community Development Block Grant, and there are a number of projects assigned. In the packets, you'll see that we have some park improvements. We have some work at the Grange Estate. We have some curb cuts and ADA accessibility. We have a crosswalk at Manor Road and Alston for the children going to the elementary school there. We have some, our biggest component of it is our housing rehabilitation program.
Great, it was just, sounds like a good program. I just wondered how often we do the allocations. Thank you.
And since you raised it, we'll go ahead and put some numbers out there for the crowd. It is, there's approximately $877,000 at issue. As Mr. Berman described, housing rehabilitation takes up a significant portion of that money. That's $266,000 is set aside for housing rehabilitation. And the rest of the projects, as he described, are fairly proportionally allocated afterwards. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Berman.
Commissioner Gondik.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Wexler.
Yes.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes. Our next item is energy procurement, participation in the fall 2022 CoStar's energy procurement event.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the township manager and/or assistant township manager to execute any and all contracts for participation in the fall 2022 CoStar's energy procurement event to be administered by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Bureau of General Services in conjunction with the Penn State Facilities Engineering Institute for 100% wind-sourced power generation for a 2-year period to begin January 2023.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? I trust this was discussed last week.
The only comment or question I would have, and I just want to make sure I'm understanding this, is for the procurement. So this was what we're approving today is on the recommendation of Ms. Cuthbertson, based on her analysis as to kind of what's in the best interest of the township. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Correct.
Yes, that is a summary. What we did was, we are at the end of our generation contract with Constellation, so we have to make a decision. We did an indicative price test to see what the best route was going to be for us, because energy prices change on a daily basis, so the only thing we can do proactively is do an indicative test. And pricing was better going and participating in the CoStars program, where they do all of the bidding for the entire group, as opposed to us going out and trying to do our own or trying to get our own deal. So based on that indicative testing, we are recommending to participate in the CoStars program. And just to prepare everybody, the price of energy has gone up dramatically, as I outlined in our memo. So just so we're all aware of that. But the differential between what we are currently at nuclear compared to wind is not very large right now, so this might be the time where we could make that jump to 100% wind.
Is this our first time participating in the group?
It is. It is.
Okay, now it is with regard to energy procurement, but we have done this with regard to negotiating benefits. We've done this with other.
We participate in CoStars probably 10 times a year, park equipment, public works equipment, things like that. So we're very comfortable with the CoStars program in general that's administered by the Commonwealth. This will be the first time we are participating in the energy procurement arm of it.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Hearing none. Mr. Berman.
Commissioner Gondik.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Wexler.
Yes.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes. Next item on the agenda is a motion to authorize Mr. Berman to submit to a composting grant application. I will entertain a motion.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the township manager, David R. Berman, to submit a USDA composting grant application with a matching grant up to $25,000.
Second.
Any questions or comments? While I was not at last week's meeting, I had the benefit of an explanation from Commissioner Trombetta, so I understand this grant and am in favor of it. Anything from anybody else?
The one comment I would have, and just to, for anyone watching this, and Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but if this grant were to be, if we were to win the grant, that money, and including the matching money, but the money from the grant would go towards kind of a broad study of composting in the township, with one of the the ideas of expanding composting in the township. And my question, I just want to make sure I'm stating this correctly, is anything that we do township-wide that reduces the tonnage of trash hauled to its final destination is something that in turn saves the township money. Is that correct?
Ultimately, that should be correct over time. The idea is if we're paying, let's say, $60 or $80 a ton, I can't recall, for solid waste collection at the Delaware County site, per ton, the amount that we divert would relieve some of that and result in some savings.
Thank you.
I think your point's well taken, though, Commissioner Gondek. And I mean, I think as we were talking about in terms of energy prices, the cost of trash in just the last couple of years has gone up dramatically. So anything we can do to get in front of that is probably beneficial financially for us.
Anyone else? Mr. Berman.
Commissioner Gondek.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty-Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Wexler.
Yes.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes. We move now to contract awards. The first contract awards is in the Public Works Department.
Mr. President, make a motion to award the 2022-2023 salt contract to Riverside Construction Materials Incorporated in the amount of $75 per ton, submitting the lowest responsible bid.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Mr. Berman.
Commissioner Gondek.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty-Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Wexler.
Yes.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes.
Mr.
Next
President,
contract relates to leaf removal.
Mr. President, make a motion to award the 2022-2023 leaf removal contract to American Biosoils, Skippack, Pennsylvania, in the amount of $26.50 per ton, submitting the only responsible bid.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments?
Just a general question. I know a number of our neighboring communities, Radnor and I believe Lower Merion, do their own compost. We've had somewhat of a checkered history trying to do it here, but I wondered if we've ever reached out to any of the neighboring community and say, can they take some of our leaves, and we're not transporting them?
We've had some preliminary conversations. That's a good question, and we can follow up on those conversations.
Thank you.
Mr. Berman,
Yes.
Mr. President, how many tons of leaves do we dump every year? I'm just
Sure
curious.
seems like a zillion.
Yes,
but,
it does.
Since that's not a particularly precise answer, and Mr. Mariani's not here right now, we could get an answer, for you to that question. It is, leaf collection takes up for, approximately 6 weeks, all the labor we have in our Public Works Department, and we also, hire additional seasonal staff to do the work. So it's a lot.
And does Biosoils compost all these leaves?
I do not know the answer to that question, but it sure would seem like deceptive marketing if they call themselves biosoils and they're just setting these things on fire. So I mean, that's a fair question.
I thought I'd check, though, since we are interested in reducing our
I can answer.
output.
The answer is yes.
Yes, okay, good, thank you.
All giddiness aside on my part, is it your concern, Commissioner Forresty-Grubb, that we should get some answers to these questions before we award a contract in this, or is this to remind us our charge to be asking these questions?
It's only to remind everyone of all the work that Public Works does to collect those leaves, because it's a bazillion tons of leaves, I'm sure. And just to say that we want to be a responsible and green township, working to reduce our carbon footprint as much as possible, and also to go back and say thank you to Commissioner Trompetta and the EAC for leading the way for applying for that USDA grant.
Mr. President, I believe our finance director can answer the question on the tonnage.
We do partner with Newtown Township. If everyone's not aware, all the leaves come here, and then American Biofuels takes it for both. So I just looked at the billing we did. Depending on weight, whether the leaves are wet, things like that, that does add into it, but it's about 1,500 tons was last year's.
Roughly $40,000, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, does anyone else have any questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Berman.
Commissioner Gondik.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart. Commissioner Wexler.
Yes.
Commissioner Trompetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes. Our next contract is in the Parks and Recreation area.
President, motion to authorize the purchase of equipment for Paddock Park from Recreation Resource USA under CoStar 014E22-249 in the amount of $1,053.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments?
Mr. President.
Yes, Commissioner.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Paddock Farm Civic Association and especially to our Eileen Matola, who worked with me to identify specifically which new pieces of equipment we would like to have. They held a meeting with me and did a ranked choice voting to determine which equipment they would like the most. So thank you, and I hope my commissioners will join me in voting for this.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Berman.
Commissioner Gondik.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Wexler.
Yes.
Commissioner Trompetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes. Our next contract is with, in the Fire and EMS Department.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to award a professional services contract to Center for Public Sector Management, LLC, in a not-to-exceed amount of $62,990 for a fire and emergency medical services study.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments on this contract? Hearing none, Mr. Berman.
Commissioner Gondik.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Wexler.
Yes.
Commissioner Trompetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes. Our next contract, last contract, is within codes enforcement.
President, I'll make the motion to enter into a professional services agreement with Tracer LLC to provide an asset management application, including web-based software, cloud-based storage, mobile access, resident reporting, permit management, parcel tracking, and GIS layer integration for an upfront amount of approximately $25,000 due in January of 2023 and a monthly amount of $1,600 with implementation slated for early 2023.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments?
Mr. President,
Yes.
I know this was discussed at the work session, which I did watch, but I was wondering if someone could provide a little bit more background detail about what exactly this is for those who may just now be tuning in to this formal meeting.
I'd be glad to. So every municipality, especially of the size and complexity that Haverford Township is, typically uses a property permitting software system, relatively complicated, that will primarily be used for our permitting system. So when people come to the township for a building permit or a zoning permit, all that gets entered into the system. We have a system we've been using for years, and we're ready to move on to our next system. This system that we are purchasing has all those features that we want, including the work order management, the asset management, the permitting, the property maintenance, and it has one added feature that we're going to love, which is it's going to have a portal for residents to go ahead online and take pictures with a mobile device or with their computer. And using GIS software, web-based, they'll be able to identify any concerns that they have, and it will then be transmitted to the township electronically and automatically routed to the appropriate department here at the township. And so that's probably the most interaction the community will have with this system, but it's going to do a lot of good for the township as a whole.
What does GIS stand for? And,
Geographic Information Systems.
okay.
And so this is web-based. You'll go in and it'll have a map that you can actually go on and point to a pothole or to a park where you want to see some improvement or where something's wrong. Maybe you have some graffiti that you see and you'd like us to clean it up. Those kinds of things that you can enter into this system, and then we'll go ahead and correct whatever issue there is.
One more question. This is going to be a big change, I think, for our township. So I assume there'll be discussions or conversations about how to get this information out to our residents?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, just like we're doing with the single-use plastics ban, we'll have to do some communication from the township's point of view so that folks know that we have this system.
Thank you.
I would just simply comment that I definitely am going to be voting yes for this, and I do support it. And I think one of the things that I like about this the most is not only as it's been relayed to me, is it, it's an advancement for our township employees and the departments in the township that'll make their jobs better, but also it'll allow for a better flow of communication and information and access to our residents. And I think that that's important. It'll kind of streamline the process and allow for better engagement, both directions, for addressing, hot spots around the township and for getting community involvement.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
Mr. President,
Yes.
I just again want to applaud our township manager and everyone who worked on identifying this potential asset management application that we can use. Just as further explanation, I think it's very similar for those who are familiar with the 311 system that we've seen in major cities, but we've also recently seen other townships doing something similar. I'm excited about it. In fact, I would argue that we are potentially revolutionizing the way that the township is responding to our constituents and allowing them to be able to kind of follow along with their requests. I also hopefully think that it will create efficiencies with our own township and making sure that our township manager isn't receiving numerous emails every day. So hopefully that lightens the load a little for him. But thank you. Thank you for doing this.
I sure hope it works.
Thank you for your comments, and Dave, we all hope it works.
Better.
Any other questions or comments on this contract? Hearing none, Mr. Berman?
Commissioner Gondik.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty-Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Wexler.
Yes.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes. We now move back to the continuation of citizens forum. If there's anybody here who's would like to address the board on any issue, whether it's an agenda item or not, they are free to now. I will start on the left and see if anybody on this side of the room would like to address the board. Move to my right. Anybody on this side of the room would like to address the board? Thank you. That closes the citizens forum for non-agenda items. Next on our agenda is new business. Is there any commissioner who would like to present before the board right now any new business? Hearing none, we'll move on to other business. We'll start with Commissioner Gondik.
Just general, best wishes to everyone as we come into the last month of the summer. I hope everyone had a good summer and takes the next month or so off if they have the ability to get in their last minute vacations and all that before the fall starts. That being said, two things I would want to just mention is one is the comprehensive plan meeting. I think it was touched on earlier that the next one is this Thursday, August 11th at 7 p.m. I believe it's here. I would just stress to anyone who's watching or listening to this that the comprehensive plan is a very important part of our township and our township's development and growth. A lot of kind of the issues that pop up, commissioner meeting to commissioner meeting to commissioner meeting, are all intertwined with the development of this ultimate comprehensive plan. As a result, I really do encourage and all the residents of the township to kind of pay attention and take some time and look at it and come out and provide your feedback, because your feedback is valuable and it is listened to, and it will go into ultimately crafting that plan. I would also highlight that, while obviously everyone constantly talks about the residents, let's not forget about the businesses. This comprehensive plan, entails all facets of the township. And so that it's important that if you have a small business in this township, that you come out and you participate and have your voice heard also, because a lot of our local business districts will be impacted in one way or the other, hopefully always positively, by this plan. And so I would encourage everyone to do that. On a side note, and I'm a little bit ahead of myself, but I'll just throw it out there so people can throw it on the calendar. October 8th, I believe it's at 2 p.m., the Westgate Hills annual Bricktoberfest. It's the Westgate Hills Civic Association is having that event. It's a family-friendly event. I encourage everyone to come out and check it out and enjoy the day. I do know that they are in the process of putting together a very nice memorial in the upper corner of the park. And part of the push is going to be to, seek donations and people to sponsor bricks in the memorial. So I do encourage people to come out, check it out, learn more about it, and get involved.
Thank you, Commissioner Gondik. Commissioner Forster-Grupp.
Thank you. I'd like to extend special thanks to Parks and Recreation for beginning the work to put together the walkway ramp so that people can get to the Lanark Park. I know everyone in the neighborhood is very excited about that, and so I wanted to say thank you, because it's really, it's going to be important for everybody who has children, so thanks. Also wanted to remind everyone that Oakmont Farmers Market is having their market at this Wednesday from 3 to 6 behind Grace Chapel. There's plenty of municipal parking. Please take advantage of it. And there's wonderful things that you can buy from local producers. Lastly, I was reminded by the director of our library that we have in Haverford Township Library a very vibrant summer program. So, for example, last year there were only 6,400 people who visited the library. And this year, 10,000 people have visited our library. This year, the number of adults who are participating in the Summer Reading Club is 91. There are 58 teens participating. And since I teach teenagers, that is a huge number. So go teens. And then, of course, the elementary and family reading program has almost 300 participants. So our library really does provide a way for people to continue learning and growing throughout the summer. So I want to thank the library for their efforts. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Forster-Grupp. Commissioner McCluskey.
Yeah, briefly, the individual gentleman who was here about Buck Lane, I just wanted to express that in my effort to try to sort of outline sort of our response and the police's response, I just want to reiterate that, I certainly sympathize and I understand, and I say to people all the time, when you're driving around town, if you look down at your speedometer, you're going 25 miles an hour, there's a good chance somebody on that street thinks you're going too fast. So I know what the speed limit is, but if there's there's parents all over this town who are standing on the street yelling at cars going by. So I think it's incumbent on all of us to try to slow down. I know for at least the last 4 years, I try not to drive on any side streets just because of the emails we get, and I understand it now. I'm very aware of it. But it's not just in the third ward, it's all over town. So, listen to that father tonight, please slow down. That's the ultimate solution. But everybody up here and everybody in our police department, we want to find solutions. The reality is people just have to slow down. Just a reminder, Kelly Music has their summer fun jam at Merwood Park on August 27th. It's from 3 to 9. Come out and support that. And echoing Commissioner Gondik, hope everyone enjoys the rest of their summer, and see you in September. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner McCluskey. Commissioner Cavender.
Thank you. I just wanted to take a minute to thank Public Works staff for their work in the heat. They've started, as everyone knows, collecting trash and recycling early, and I know are working very hard in extreme weather. So thanks everybody for your patience, and thank you to Public Works. Just to echo, obviously safety and secure and pedestrian accessibility is important for kids. Buck Lane is in my ward, but I know that there are roads just like it, like Kevin said, everywhere in the township. And I do think the comprehensive plan can help us implement some of these things that we know are needed and that are past due. While we are dealing with these things, part of it is that we need to get caught up with, in some cases, volume in neighborhoods, density of traffic, and we have a lot more young families. And I just, we want to attract more young families, and we want them to stay safe. So understanding the constraints that we're working under, just the realities of enforcement and signage, I know I'm joined by other commissioners in saying that we do want to continue to work on this and keep our kids safe. I wanted to say a quick congratulations to a Fifth Ward business, M&M Two-Wheelers. I don't know if anyone knows the bike shop up on Lancaster Avenue, but they are celebrating 15 years of business this year in Haverford Township. And I just want to give a shout out to a small business. It's hard to make a go at it, and 15 years is a long time. The last thing I want to say is Discover Haverford is sponsoring the Andy Lewis 5K run, Take the High Road. It's that Sunday, September 25th. They're still looking for sponsors. The funds raised will go to Discover Haverford, and it's a great way to go out, be with your community, and honor one of our community leaders. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Cavender. Commissioner Quinn.
Okay. I think when they switched the signs, I think every one of us that day got calls, because I know that I got calls and I got explained to it by Dan. So I feel everybody's pain that when the signs were changed, but that was the law. And the other thing is, I think we all see this a lot during the day when everybody goes. When you see a crosswalk, stop, because I always see cars just go right through, and and the kids just stand there and wait. And I'm sure all of us have been at the shore this past summer, and you stop on every street to let everybody go, and I think that's just what we need to start to do. And I think everybody enjoy the rest of your summer, and I'll have more to say in September.
Thank you, Commissioner Quinn. Commissioner Hart.
Yes, just some 8th Ward Park news. Work on the tennis courts in the Grange will begin in September. They'll be resurfacing the upper courts and converting the lower courts to 6 pickleball courts. I believe the project will last about 6 weeks. And the work at Brookline, the demolition contractors have finally finished their work and took down some of the fencing. We did leave the fencing up along Arlington Road as a safety measure. There's a temporary parking lot that's been in place so that when the youth soccer starts there in the fall, there's a place to park off the street. In September, also the consulting firm that was hired to help us design the new park at Brookline will be starting their community outreach to get feedback from residents on what they'd like to see in the future park there. So be on the lookout for that. They're planning to do a very extensive outreach. And everybody enjoy the rest of your summer.
Thank you, Commissioner Hart. Commissioner Wexler?
Yes, several things from the Hilltop Civic Association. September 17th is our neighborhood yard sale, and the 22nd is their general meeting. Also, a reminder, on August 20th of this month, we have a township-wide shredding event out here from 8 to 11 a.m. It's on August 20th. And then on a serious note, I had a call today and yesterday. When you see something in your neighborhood and it looks suspicious, please call 911. I had a neighbor on a local street email me a picture of a strange man that was looking in a neighbor's car and had walked around the house and looking in her window. So emailing me a picture from across the street doesn't do any good. Please call 911. As our chief will explain, our police officers are only too willing to go out and investigate a complaint, even if it's unfounded, if it's an innocent thing. That's what they're there for. So if you see somebody strange walking through there in the afternoon, knocking on the door, looking in the front and the side windows, and then looking in their cars, don't send me an email when I'm away down the shore in Ocean City, because it's not going to do any good. Call 911. I explained it to the person, and I hate to bother the police. I didn't think it was an emergency. The only way to report any incident in this township is to call 911, whether it's just a safety issue, a concern, or an actual emergency. Please do it. Call 911. Don't be afraid to do it. Chief, your guys are there, and men and women, they're only too happy to go out and investigate. It helps them. If they've got a call, there's legal ramifications. They can stop the person as they're now considered suspicious. They can look in a backpack unless he's just walking down the street. You can say, I'm looking for the bus, and police officer can give them directions to Township Line to catch the 110. But please call. It turned out somebody did talk to the person, and they left the neighborhood pretty quickly. So, but that was a good outcome. We don't know some of the other outcomes that could happen, but please don't be afraid to use 911. Just a reminder there. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wexler. Commissioner Trombetta?
Thank you. First, I wanted to let everyone know that the Linwood Park Civic Association is hosting a potluck this Friday at 6 p.m. at Foster Track. They suggest bringing an appetizer or dessert to share with your neighbors. So I hope to see some of you there. Other than that, I really just wanted to give a shout out to the Parks and Recreation Department, who my son has been going through the summer camps for, I think, 6 weeks now, and the counselors are just doing a fantastic job. And I've seen on some of the moms groups on Facebook that they're having similar positive experiences. I think we're very fortunate to have such an affordable and enjoyable option for our kids here. So huge shout out. Thank you for everything. And for taking care of my son. So thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you, Commissioner Trombetta. I just want to thank tonight's speakers. Thank you for your thoughtful comments. I want to thank Mr. Zivos in particular. Sometimes we as commissioners know more information than other folks know, and we just assume that everybody knows it, that everybody understands the 15-mile-an-hour, kind of fake signs that we had. And tonight was a reminder that that a lot of members of the public don't necessarily know what we know, and it was a reminder to us that we should, especially when signs change in neighborhoods, things happen like that, that we, it's important for us to communicate that. So again, that is one of the purposes of the Citizens Forum, is is to teach us something up here as well as everybody out in the audience. So thank you to him and to our other speakers as well. Chief, we had a request. I think this is written to all of the commissioners. I don't know if you addressed it privately or not, but in reporting on the issues we're having with mail that is being stolen from boxes, some of our residents are interested in knowing if there are particular boxes that are more vulnerable than others, particular areas, and that in reporting, whether it's on our website or when you report, it's not just that somebody in the 100 block of Ardmore Ave had their mail stolen from a mailbox, but that the mailbox was located at the corner of, let's say, Belmont and Lorraine. So
I did see that email. We're going to make a change with that. And tomorrow, I'll send the list of that 82 or 83 mailboxes to the commissioners. You can push that out, and I'll also put it on our website. In the future, when we get the crime update, we'll make sure it's on there.
Great. Thank you, Chief. And then just one last thing I wanted to say. It's a follow-up from last month's meeting. It came up tonight. It came up at the last meeting. And it's just a quick explanation as to the difference between proclamations, resolutions, and ordinances, with three of the ways that we act as a board. Ordinances are laws that we pass that affect all of our citizens. Everybody is bound to them. And they live beyond us unless they're repealed or unless the language in them includes some type of expiration date. These are things with some permanence that can only be overturned by another board, or by this board, or by somebody with a higher authority than us, such as a state legislature or a federal legislature. Resolution is an action by this board, but by this board in its capacity as a board, as opposed to as representatives of this township. And you see us pass resolutions. Those are things where we take an action to have somebody, whether it's one of our township officials, communicate something or take an action or hire a consultant. We've used resolutions for the analysis of gender equity. We've used resolutions for the purposes of communicating this board's opinion on an issue to other legislative bodies. And then finally, there are proclamations. We didn't have any tonight, but you folks have seen plenty of proclamations. Proclamations are really where we herald some achievement or note some milestone that is going on. They really can be presented by any one board member, and provided there isn't significant objection by any other board member, they tend to be driven by and presented by one board member. So as people consider the actions this board takes, I just want them to think about what we think very seriously about and take very seriously, the different ways that we can act and should act. And that's why you'll see us do things in different ways. You'll see us do them as proclamations. You'll see us, which happen before we have citizens' input, because they don't require any action by the board. You'll see us pass resolutions, which typically indicate hiring somebody or directing our township staff to undertake some task, or we pass ordinances, which have a much greater impact and impact everybody in the township. So I just felt after the discussion last month, a lot of the email that I've received and conversations I've had with folks, and then hearing comments tonight, that explanation, while not nearly encyclopedic, I hope is has some use for folks in evaluating the different actions that we take. So with that, I will also wish everybody a great end of their summer. Between now and our next meeting, kids will be back in school. That means people will be back, traffic will be up, patients will be wearing thin. Please, everybody, drive carefully. Remember, kids will start walking to school again, and have a safe and healthy rest of your summer. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned.